Do you think sleep is just for resting? To shut off the body until the next day arrives? That exactly is the childish view that keeps billions of people trapped in cycles of suffering, emotional illnesses, and endless creative blocks. The truth, revealed by Seth in one of the deepest channeled materials on the nature of the soul, will pull you out of that state of illusion. Sleep is not rest. Sleep is spiritual work. It is vibrational healing. It is direct access to the backstage of your own multidimensional consciousness. And while you sleep, your soul is operating on levels your rational mind does not even dare to conceive. It negotiates destinies, realigns traumas, visits parallel realities, and participates in genuine, cosmic schools of learning. But there is a serious problem. The way modern society taught you to sleep is sabotaging all of this. Sleeping too much, at the wrong times, under artificial lights, with an oversaturated mind, all of that is killing your natural ability to restore your own body and your energy field. And the price is high: depression, anxiety, burnout, creative stagnation, and a constant feeling that something is wrong, even when everyone says you should feel rested. Today in this video, I will show you, based on the Seth Material, what really happens to your consciousness while you sleep. And if you stay with me until the end, you will understand why most people are literally asleep to the true spiritual function of sleep. My friend, we are not here to play. We are here to wake you up. During your entire life, you were taught to believe that sleep is a rest, a shutdown, almost like a necessary interval because the body cannot stay active all the time. But that is only a superficial view. Seth reveals something infinitely deeper. Sleep is not a blackout of consciousness. It is, in fact, one of the moments of greatest activity. When you fall asleep, the physical body does rest, yes, but your consciousness remains fully active. It simply shifts its focus to other dimensions of experience that the waking ego cannot capture. Think for a moment. How many times have you woken up tired even after many hours of sleep? Or, on the contrary, awakened refreshed after a short sleep? That happens because while the body rests, the soul is in full activity. It visits other realities, performs energetic adjustments, takes part in multidimensional meetings, and integrates learnings. Sleep is a daily portal to territories that the waking state cannot easily access. In sleep, the soul reorganizes vibrations, restores emotional pattern, and often works on problems we cannot solve rationally. Now imagine sleep as a subtle astral journey. While you dream, your consciousness can dialogue with other versions of yourself, with spiritual guides, with entities from other planes, and even revisit events from parallel lives. Seth explains that in many of these states we undergo trainings, planning sessions, and explorations that enrich our incarnational journey. And all of this occurs while the ego, limited to the third dimension, thinks it is turned off. In reality, it is the ego who takes a vacation. The soul continues on full duty. That is why sleep cannot be treated as a mere biological mechanism. It is a profound spiritual function designed to allow your consciousness to remain active even while the physical body undergoes its restorative processes. In fact, many emotional problems persist, not because people do not sleep enough, but because they do not allow the kind of deep, aligned sleep that favors the real work of consciousness during the night. Some people sleep but do not rest precisely because they do not access the deeper field where these activities take place. But all of this is only the beginning, because sleep not only allows consciousness to act, it also opens portals for the soul to receive messages, instructions, and revelations directly from other dimensions. And that is where dreams come in. Dreams that go far beyond disconnected images. They function as true codes of communication between the soul and your physical self. Most people see dreams as a jumble of random images, confusing leftovers of what they lived during the day, but in reality, dreams are one of the soul's most sophisticated means of communicating with your physical personality. Seth teaches us that during sleep, the soul has direct access to multiple levels of reality, connecting with parallel dimensions, other simultaneous existences, and with the very field of the Oversoul, where all versions of you are interconnected. When you dream, you are not merely reliving your daily concerns. You are often accessing parallel realities where other yous are experiencing completely different lessons. You may be visiting versions of yourself that chose other life decisions, or receiving instructions from higher levels of consciousness about situations your rational mind does not yet understand. It is as if the dream were an encrypted letter from the soul sent night after night, with subtle orientational and vibrational corrections. For example, have you noticed how some dreams seem to bring wisdom you did not have before? Sometimes you wake up with the exact answer to a problem that tormented you. That is no coincidence. It is the direct result of guidance received during sleep in realms where your physical consciousness did not interfere. It is in that dream field that many professional solutions, emotional healings, and even spiritual insights are gestated before they become conscious. And the most interesting part, you can learn to become a more active participant in this process. One simple and powerful practice is dream programming. Before sleeping, formulate a clear question and ask your soul for guidance. Something like, "What do I need to understand about this situation?" Or, "What is the next most aligned step for my growth?" Often the answers come disguised as symbols, but with observation practice and noting them upon waking, you begin to decode the soul's unique language. But dreams do not serve only to offer personal answers. They also reveal something even more impressive: direct interaction with other personalities of yourself from other realities living simultaneously. And that leads us to the next level of understanding who this I that dreams really is. Most believe it is just the same self who is awake, disorganized by the night images. That is an illusion. Seth teaches that when we sleep, our consciousness does not just drift in daydreams, it transitions among simultaneous identities, other yous living in parallel lines of existence, each with its own learning, experiences, and choices unfolding at the exact moment you sleep here. While your body rests, your consciousness travels fluidly through the mesh of these other realities. They are not past or future lives in the linear sense. They are active and coexisting versions of yourself. That is why sometimes we dream of scenarios that feel strangely familiar yet distorted, or of situations that make perfect sense within the dream but seem illogical upon waking. It is because during the dream, you are in fact accessing experiences of these other selves who follow rules and choices distinct from those of your current incarnation. For example, someone may dream they speak fluently a language they do not physically know, or that they practice a profession never experienced in this life. That is not imagination. It is a vibrational exchange with another version of yourself where those abilities exist. These passages are not fantasy, but legitimate communications among the soul's multiple expressions. The barrier the physical ego imposes during the day simply dissolves while the body sleeps. And even more fascinating, in many of these states, consciousness is not limited to merely observing those realities. It can interact, learn, collaborate, and even bring back insights from those experiences to apply here in this plane. People who access conscious astral projection, for instance, report clearly these meetings with other versions of themselves. There are safe techniques for those who wish to deepen this ability, such as those proposed by William Buhlman and Robert Monroe. Serious references in multidimensional consciousness research. But even in this grand exploration field, there is a factor that limits, distorts, or even erases these memories upon waking. That factor is the ego, and understanding how it interferes in retrieving these contents is crucial to our journey. Here we reach a key point explaining why so many people say, "I hardly dream," or "My dreams make no sense." The culprit for this confusion is the ego. Seth reveals that the ego, that rational, linear, and extremely limited part of the mind, was programmed to operate in the physical plane, organizing three-dimensional reality. But when the body falls asleep and consciousness dives into multidimensional layers, the ego loses control. And when attempting to recover these experiences upon waking it, filters, distorts, or simply erases what it cannot fit into its logic. It is like trying to translate a complex symphony for someone who only knows a plastic flute. The ego does not understand symbols, cosmic metaphors, or experiences outside linear time. It desperately seeks to give rational meaning to what we experienced in much deeper levels during sleep. And that is why it often turns rich, multidimensional experiences into confusing and disconnected fragments upon waking. It's the classic, "I dreamed something very strange, but cannot remember it clearly." Moreover, there is an unconscious self-protection of the ego. It fears losing command when it perceives something greater operating beyond its comprehension. That is why, upon waking, we are quickly invaded by tasks, commitments, daily thoughts, and dreams fade like smoke. Who has not woken up with a vivid dream fresh in memory, and minutes later could not retrieve it with clarity? That is the ego reinstating its control program. But it is possible with practice and intention to weaken this interference. A valuable tool is the dream journal. Keep a notebook by your bed and immediately note down any detail as soon as you wake up, even if it seems meaningless. That helps train the mind to capture and organize this information before the ego distorts it. Over time, you will notice patterns, recurring symbols, and even fragments that previously went unnoticed. And the more you train this connection, the more the ego begins to yield space for other layers of consciousness to surface. From that point, we enter a new phase, learning to access with more clarity altered states of consciousness that allow us to consciously navigate these territories during sleep itself. Now that the ego has begun to lose part of its dominance over sleep and dreams, Seth guides us to an even more fascinating field, the conscious development of the oniric experience. That is, not just dreaming, but beginning to use sleep as a true spiritual laboratory. Consciousness can be trained to enter altered states during sleep, where learning, healing, and multidimensional exploration occur more lucidly and deeply. One of Seth's most powerful keys is the use of conscious programming before sleep. Before dozing off, give gentle yet clear commands to your mind. I want to remember my dream. I want to meet my guides. Or, I ask for guidance on issue X. That intention creates a specific vibrational field that acts as an invitation to the soul's deeper layers, opening safe exploration portals. Additionally, practices like creative visualization also help in this preparation. When lying down, imagine yourself crossing a portal of light into a safe and protected space where you will find answers. This exercise, repeated with consistency, begins training the subconscious to seek these states more naturally. Authors like Robert Monroe in the classic Journeys Out of the Body detail vibrational induction techniques ideal for those wishing to go even deeper in this expansion. Another fundamental factor is deep physical relaxation before sleep. The more relaxed the body, the less resistance the physical ego offers to consciousness shifting. Techniques such as progressive muscle relaxation, conscious breathing, or hot baths before bed can be excellent allies in facilitating this process. The more the body switches off, the more consciousness is free to navigate. But even with all these techniques, there is something still more impressive behind this invisible theater of dreams. Often when sleeping, you are not just accessing your own memories or parallel experience. In many moments, you participate in true collective spiritual learning gatherings led by higher consciousnesses. And that extraordinary phenomenon is what we will explore next. While most still believe they sleep alone, Seth reveals a surprising reality. During sleep, consciousness often takes part in collective learning meetings, real nighttime classes, where groups of souls from different parts of the planet, and even from different planes of existence, gather in specific vibrational environments to receive guidance, training, and share universal wisdom. It is a continuous cosmic education process occurring while the physical body rests. In these gatherings, the soul carries none of the ego's limitations, allowing learning to happen with impressive clarity and speed. Complex themes like consciousness expansion, vibrational manipulation, life purpose adjustments, and even karmic reviews are addressed in these spaces. That is why some people wake after certain nights with profound insights, shifts in perception, or feelings of having participated in something grand even without recalling exact details. A practical example are experiences reported by members of serious spiritual study groups. Often participants recount similar dreams, encounters with unknown masters, or experiences in bright and serene learning halls. These coinciding accounts point to these collective teaching fields, something Seth describes as a natural aspect of the soul's multidimensional life. The so-called speakers, like Seth himself, act as guides in these meetings. They orchestrate these educational environments on higher planes, gathering souls at different levels of spiritual maturity, tailoring the teaching to each group's needs. They are true cosmic teachers, guiding souls through topics our limited physical plane language cannot even name. But even this grand nocturnal educational activity is only a reflection of something even greater. The very nature of consciousness that never sleeps, never stops, and remains continuously active even when we think we are merely resting. Many people still do not grasp the real power sleep exerts over our body and our consciousness. Seth teaches that sleep is not just a mechanical pause, but a profoundly intelligent moment of vibrational restoration. During sleep, not only does the physical body perform cellular regeneration processes, but consciousness corrects energetic distortion, reorganizes poorly processed emotion, and realigns psychic system. It is a true multidimensional healing work happening while we rest. When this process occurs in balanced fashion, we wake not only physically renewed, but creatively more potent. The mind returns to wakefulness with new neural connections, subtle insights, and greater adaptability to life's daily challenges. That is why, often after a good night of sleep, we find creative solutions to problems that seemed unsolvable the day before. Sleep aligns the soul's energy field, facilitating the natural flow of creativity and mental clarity. However, what many do not realize is that excessive sleep can indicate deep emotional blockages. A clear example are people in depressive states. Instead of using sleep as a restoration tool, they end up using it as an unconscious escape. They sleep long periods, often 10 or 12 hours a day, attempting to avoid emotional confrontation. That excess not only fails to resolve the issue, but can worsen it, because consciousness enters a state of stagnation, hindering the energetic adjustment sleep should provide. Seth even warns that for most people, sleeping more than 6 hours per cycle does not favor consciousness. On the contrary, it can lead to a kind of psychic torpor, where the mind slows down, the emotional field congests, and the body experiences paradoxical fatigue. One sleeps too much, yet wakes exhausted. It is an indication the soul is being trapped in a repetitive cycle of vibrational inactivity. Therefore, sleep must be understood as a living, active movement of consciousness, and not as a kind of prolonged shutdown. True rest lies not in quantity, but in the vibrational quality of sleep. And that quality has been systematically corrupted by the way modern society structures its rest pattern. And that is what we will now dive into. The biggest problem is not sleep itself, but in how artificially we practice it. Seth makes it clear that the way modern society organizes sleep is deeply misaligned with the soul's natural rhythm. The obsession with long, uninterrupted sleep blocks, often exceeding 8 hours, was born from industrial logic and factory life, replacing biological cycles with shift schedule, artificial light, and productivity demand. Before the Industrial Revolution, sleep was segmented and dynamic. People slept in 2 cycles. A few hours after sunset, they would wake around midnight, spend time in contemplation, meditate, pray, read or write, and then return to sleep until dawn. This pattern, called biphasic sleep, allowed the soul to perform its vibrational corrections more fluidly, with intervals where the ego could assimilate part of the information accessed during the deep sleep phase. With the advent of electric light and industrial routines, we were led to sleep long, continuous periods, often forced, creating zones of psychic stagnation. When we exceed the maximum sleep time, usually 6 hours, we begin to saturate the energetic adjustment mechanisms, making sleep less restorative and heavier. That is why people who oversleep often report fatigue, mental confusion, and even worsening negative emotional states. Furthermore, prolonged exposure to artificial light and electronic devices disrupts the natural hormonal production rhythms such as melatonin, disorganizing the soul's energy flow. This mismatch not only harms physical health, but also hinders access to the subtle levels of instruction consciousness seeks to perform during sleep. Fortunately, with simple conscious practices like reducing night light stimuli, respecting the body's natural cues, avoiding oversleeping, and reintroducing small periods of silence and contemplation, at night it is possible to restore this harmony. When sleep becomes again a sacred space for the soul's work, the accesses to lucid dreams, profound insights, and multidimensional encounters naturally intensify. Now tell me, after everything you have just discovered, do you still think that simply sleeping is enough? Do you understand today that sleep is much more than physical rest? It is during sleep that your soul acts as the architect of your own existence, healing traumas, reorganizing vibrations, receiving guidance, and preparing your energy field for the life you are building. But the question that remains now is simple, and at the same time profound. How have you been treating your own sleep? Have you provided the environment, the time, and the respect your consciousness needs to perform this invisible work? Or have you let yourself be dominated by cycles of excess, misalignment, and emotional escape that so many have fallen into in modernity? What would your life be like if you woke up every day with your energy field fully restored? What levels of creativity, clarity, and expansion could you access if you mastered this key that almost no one taught you? And what is still stopping you from applying this knowledge today? If this content resonated with you, my invitation is subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and come with me on this journey of expansion where we reveal what the world still insists on hiding.